Thank you very much, the Honourable Chair, for your kind introduction. I am flattered. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a great honour and a privilege for me to deliver my thoughts on this year's symposium theme, and I will focus on the aspects. Today, our country is enjoying full dividends of peace and is engaged in a concerted rapid acceleration effort of our economic development, bringing prosperity to our citizens. We as a nation need to catch up the lost opportunities of the last 3 decades on our growth. The most vivid example of how we lost our opportunity due to the conflict is much visible when reflecting on the development that has taken place in Southeast Asian capitals surpassing us, who wanted to follow us as a role model. They did not have a major conflict like what we had. This is why the government and the defense services even today, in a post-conflict situation, have to ensure unremitting security of our country. Further, our Defense Secretary, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, rightly said, I quote, "Without security and stability, there will be no economic development," unquote. For peace and development to sustain, a proper national security mechanism should be ensured. The Air Force plays a vital role in defending the skies of Sri Lanka. We remember the darker days when our airspace was violated, and also the challenge posed by the LTT Air Wing with few light aircraft. Such similar scenarios should never be experienced again. In the present context, the role of the Air Force has taken a twofold path. First, to protect the airspace of our country, and it is best described by the people as the guardians of the sky, and secondly, to extend a partnership on the rapid nation-building effort that is taking place at present. I will be reflecting my perspectives along the topics shown on the screen. Many of the learned speakers who shared their thoughts before me explained the geostrategic importance of our country due to its geographical disposition. The proximity to international shipping line connecting the east and west has long-term security implications on our nation. The history is repeating again, and in the present context of the new world order and the global security challenges, Sri Lanka draws more attention from its strategic disposition. Therefore, Sri Lanka, being in the crossroads of the Asian power contest, should maneuver ourselves delicately to grab our opportunities. Another factor that leads to Sri Lanka's increasing importance in the world of international arena involves the regional geopolitical realities. Indian Ocean region has unexpectedly come to focus in terms of great power status, energy independence, democracy, global maritime trade and commerce. Efforts are being made to enhance and strengthen coordination and collaboration among countries in the region, with particular focus on non-traditional security sectors such as humanitarian aid, disaster relief, counter-piracy measures. The issue in our immediate neighborhood and the issues emerging from regional powers are particularly sensitive in this regard. Military modernization, transparency in decision-making process in the military and security is not adequate and has created a sense of distrust and misunderstanding in the region. These developments need to be taken cognizance of. Hence, promoting and developing multi-layered approaches among countries is important to ensure security in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, in the post-conflict Sri Lanka, national security concerns have taken a new form. Internal threats that prevailed during the conflict have now dissipated, and new threats have started to emerge. It is the responsibility of the security apparatus to ensure the sovereignty and territorial integrity of our nation and to establish a conducive security environment for economic development to its full potential. In addition, security institutions should exercise diplomacy to create a favorable environment for Sri Lanka internationally. Since the physical elimination of terrorism in 2009, as talked by my army colleague, Sri Lanka is on a steady process of rapid transformation. In the immediate aftermath of the conflict, social issues have been addressed, focusing on demining, relocating IDPs, reconstruction, rehabilitation, which we have achieved successfully. By the diligent efforts of the government, disarming of the other militant groups in the north and east is done, and it is also a significant achievement. Despite all these efforts, we still see the shadows of re-emerging terrorism. LTT maintained an extensive international network, and which was instrumental in training air tigers mainly from France, Malaysia, and UK. The Global Tamil Forum that we talked about earlier emerged in 2010 in the LTT front office in the international network, which works toward winning the international opinion for the same purpose that the LTT aspired. They are successful to an extent because we all know that even after 4 years of unhindered peace, internal affairs of Sri Lanka are taking the forefront of the international arena by the lobbyists. It is not only terrorism that we have to consider, but also the extremist groups who are trying to promote radical activities to disturb the tranquility with ulterior sinister motives. These are being addressed appropriately for resolve. As radical activities give a shade of extremism, along with the involvement of external factors, it is important to address this issue, preventing it being a national security concern. The extremist group working outside Sri Lanka and has caused inter- and intrastate issues that threatens the regional geopolitical stability. Being an island, we do not have land borders to protect, but we have maritime borders as well as an airspace to protect. Maritime security is a major concern of Sri Lanka since 1970s, which was addressed in depth by my naval colleague. Organized human trafficking, smuggling, poaching, exploiting the EEZ are our maritime concerns at present. As important sea lanes of communication are located in the close proximity to our country, we should be vigilant about the international piracy, as it might one day be a regional defect and a destabilizing factor. Aerial policing of the EEZ can contain this aspect. With the varieties of armament circulating among the people during the conflict, organized criminal activities such as kidnapping, ransom, drugs, and armed robberies are prevalent. Handling and curbing these issues is also a task at hand. The international community who were involved in internal affairs of our country during the conflict has not retracted their engagement with our nation yet. Being more sensitive for a nation's international affairs is a barrier for our development. Misusing social media networks like the Facebook, the cyberspace creates and poses a significant effect and may destabilize or cause serious damage to any nation state. In addition, there could be possibilities when unseen forces who are wary of Sri Lanka's emergence as economic might, attempting to destabilize the country with the social media networks, which is a modern form of protracted warfare, which is seen worldwide, and we should be mindful of the fact. A positive factor that the Sri Lankan population that we have is our higher much level of literacy and intellectual assimilation power and the vibrant democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to reinforce my introduction that the role of the SLAF takes a post-conflict situation to safeguard our airspace and to see how effective we could be stakeholders in the ongoing nation-building efforts. I will first give an insight to the partnership of the nation-building efforts. The 2010 policy document of His Excellency the President Mahinda Rajapaksa is the guiding document for Sri Lanka. According to 2010 Mahinda Chintanaya, the vision for the future, Sri Lanka is in a rapid transformation. I quote, "The objective of our next massive leap forward is to transform Sri Lanka into a strategically important economic center of the world. My determination, therefore, is to transform Sri Lanka to the pearl of Asian Silk Route once again in modern terms. Using our strategic geographical location effectively, I will develop our motherland as a naval, aviation, I emphasize aviation, commercial, energy and knowledge hub, serving as key links between the East and West," unquote. The policy of this theme relevant to aviation is developing the sector through the theme Nillahasa Jayaganimu, winning the blue skies. When the conflict ended in 2009, the other stakeholders in aviation were not geared up to the challenge of the rapid growth. Focusing on tourism, Sri Lankan Air Force was tasked with developing and nurturing the aviation sector with the other relevant government agencies. In addition, Sri Lanka Air Force extended its wings further to the leisure and hospitality industry. When the conflict ended, in addition to the available airfields that we were in position, the LTT airfields that were used in the north and east was also attained. The rapid runway repair wing of the Air Force began redeveloping the Iranamadu runway in August 2011. I am proud to state that this was the only runway that has been built with total in-house expertise within Sri Lanka. This was a development and an investment with long-term benefits for the North. We were able to develop this runway at one-third the cost in June 2013. With an expected 2.6 million tourist arrivals in 2016, the region is preparing to meet the rising domestic air travel demand. We have further expanded the Ampara runway and is in the process of developing Mullaitivu, Patiklu and Anuradhapura runways, in addition to developing a runway in Kandy. Passenger terminals were expanded with upgraded capacity to cater for the growing passenger demand. Further, air traffic controllers of the Air Force are manning airfields, and Air Force provides aviation fuel and fire protection until the readiness of relevant civilian agencies for the transfer of the operation once ready. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go through Helitours, which is the commercial air arm of the Air Force that was revamped to nurture the civil aviation sector. We have set up standards and safety practices in domestic aviation subject to scrutiny of the civil aviation regulatory mechanism and insurance underwriters with the airline operator's certificate. Helitours operation is carried out as scheduled, non-scheduled charter flights and extended its reach further to airline ticketing and trading, serving a great amount of finances for the government. Helitours is proud of its achievement of being the sole offshore transfer provider in the Mannar Basin for the seismic surveys. Sri Lanka Air Force is the only entity that provides air-sea rescue in Sri Lanka. Further, working with the newly established Coast Guard and the Sri Lanka Navy will be a force multiplier and add synergy to augment our air-sea rescue capability. In addition, we are equipped with onboard payloads for surveying. Our knowledge and expertise are being taken by the survey department in generating maps for Sri Lanka. Let me now walk you through the air aspects. Ladies and gentlemen, Let me go back to our history. National security was not a primary concern soon after independence in 1948, and resulted the military largely being ceremonial. The emergence of terrorism after 1983 and the involvement of other nations in domestic affairs felt the need of having an improved defense mechanism through recruitment, acquisition of better assets, resources, and training. The quantum leap with the conflict that the Air Force has taken to date is such that we have provided our capability to respond effectively to the domestic challenges, and we have a moderate air defense and offensive capability. The air component of a viable national security strategy must be constantly aligned, ends with means, goals with resources, objectives with tools that are required to accomplish them. Further, the strategy needs to be aligned with the aspirations of the people and the governing policy. In terms of internal security, development of intelligence agencies is of utmost importance. Under the defense intelligence, our air intelligence was strengthened and worked closely with our sister services in complementing the task of the Air Force. The rules of engagement was a key factor of the success in air campaign, with striving focus on minimal collateral damage, zero casualties, proportionality, and accuracy. As such, the SLF post-conflict challenges are as given on the slide. These challenges could be achieved through our core competencies. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance are the important tasks that have a direct bearing on the overall national security apparatus. Due to aerial reconnaissance and surveillance, the Air Force was able to assist the Special Task Force in curtailing illegal narcotics plantation in the post-conflict scenario. The challenge that the Air Force has on aerial intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance in the present context is the availability of assets and the extent of range that could be augment the capacity for a longer reach. We being an island with a larger EEZ, it is difficult to cover the total area by the Sri Lanka Navy. Due to resource constraints, SLF also finds it difficult to maintain a 24/7 operation all-weather capability. As dwelt by my naval counterpart, human smuggling, piracy, drug trafficking, dumping of toxic waste are threats of concern. It is confirmed that the LTT acquired their sophisticated equipment, including the aircraft, through the medium of sea. Hence, keeping our sensors and shooters beamed on the EEZ is of paramount importance. Sri Lanka engaging in a war with another country is extremely unlikely due to its non-aligned, non-aggressive posture. But the possibility of non-state actors destroying national assets cannot be ignored. With the ongoing seismic research for petro and hydrocarbon deposits in our seabeds, the SLF has a growing concern to ensure detection and long-range strike capability to protect our offshore petroleum facilities. The long-range strike capability during the conflict proved our capability when we were called upon to engage enemy vessels in blue waters. Our Air Force now needs to ensure that the competitive edge gained on air combat capability of the 5 squadrons are retained. Maritime security and border patrols have become a joint spectrum with the Sri Lanka Navy and the Coast Guard. It is also on the same lines the disaster management response centers. A totally dedicated for this purpose is a necessity, and even prior to venturing into assets, the organization is a mandatory requirement. Air Force acts as the first response to all the disaster situations. All in all, having a well-trained, equipped Air Force is a deterrence and insurance to any nation state. Never should Air Force fall back to a ceremonial role again. In protecting our skies, we need to maintain aerial diplomacy. Professional Air Force to Air Force do not violate airspaces of sovereign nations. To maintain this, we need to have good diplomatic relations and military-to-military relations with neighboring countries. We also need to advocate the non-aligned posture in the future, upholding the national sovereignty and integrity without interference through the medium of the third dimension. With the growing cyber warfare among nations, we need to think whether we are safe. The military has started to engage the cyber domain. The freedom of probability of obtaining aerial footage of enemy activities to the field commanders without interference may be remote in the future. Today, cyber warfare is the cheapest domain to engage a nation. Thus, this can destroy and deny access to high-value equipment. We, the Air Force, is fully aware of this threat and is working along the lines to safeguard our nation from cyber attacks. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I am very confident that with the available resources, we will be able to engage the address challenges first. Then advance through training and finally to acquire assets to suit the changing environment and to meet the future challenges that was discussed. Engagement with other defense establishments within and outside Sri Lanka had been fruitful in the past with synergistic effects and will remain to be so in the future. Having discussed the challenges, I wish to state that the Sri Lanka Air Force is always prepared and will maintain the substantial air power to ensure the peaceful environment and protect the nation of its sovereignty and integrity along with the Sri Lanka Army and the Navy at any given time. Surakimu Lakambara. Thank you.